Uh-huh.
Chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. Purushottama Yoga. Well, let's watch for that word, Purushottama, the Supreme Person. How's that going to come in? I think it's after he describes the banyan tree, and then he says, then you should cut down that tree with the weapon of detachment, and then go find that Supreme Person from where, having gone, one never returns. All right, let's watch for it. Here we go. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree, which has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." Anandi, go ahead. Text 2.
The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society.
Isaac, text 3.
The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial.
This sounds like the beginning of a big video game adventure.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would that? It probably wouldn't make a very good video game, but we're kind of in one. I mean, we're in this illusory reflection banyan tree. It doesn't really exist, and it's got roots and branches going everywhere. It does exist, but in one sense, it doesn't exist. It's just an illusion, just like a reflection exists, but it's not really real. It's just a reflection. Yeah, it's there, but you can't get any nourishment if you look at a reflection of some really good food, and you try to eat that. It's not going to help you. All right. So now that we've read all of those, what do we just read? Mochu and Isaac, were you with us last time we read this? It was only 20 days ago.
No.
Oh, you missed that one.
No.
We got out the picture. Remember that painting?
Yep.
Okay, Mochu remembers. Isaac, you missed that one. There's a
I know,
painting.
I'm saying I know the picture, but I wasn't there for that session.
Oh, okay. But in the picture, it shows all of these things. It shows a banyan tree, and Radha and Krishna are standing under it. And it's a beautiful picture of Radha and Krishna. And we looked at it and we said, wow, we should take advantage of this picture. Maybe we should find it. Who would like to look up that picture? It will be in the, it'll probably be photos. Let's see, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, image. So Radha and Krishna are standing there under a tree, and then reflected on water, and on the water is the word desire. And so there's this really complex branches going all over the place, and the leaves are labeled, and it's everything that we read about here in these verses. It has its roots upward and its branches down, The leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Veda. Then the next verse says, the branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. So it shows different objects of the senses on the twigs on that painting. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. And a lot of, okay, when we look at the picture, then we'll read the purport. And the purport explains a lot of what's going on in the painting. So while Isaac's looking, would you read the purport to text number 2?
The description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches spread in all directions. In the lower parts there are variegated manifestations of living entities. Human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc.
These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, Gandharvas, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Did you find it, Isaac?
Maybe. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, that's it. Oh, you're using your phone today.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, switch it.
Can't share.
I mean, I can probably find it, but yeah.
Show it again. Let's take a close look at the picture.
I'll try and send it. Hold on, I'll find it.
Well, I could find it too, but
Okay, yeah.
you sent it? What did you send it to?
No, I haven't yet.
Exit full screen.
Oh no, I'm lost.
Text 2.
Oh yes, sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes the tract is very green. Similarly, when a particular
where particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly. Go ahead, Isaac, the next paragraph in the purport.
The twigs of the tree are considered to be the sense objects. By development of the different modes of nature, we develop different senses, and by the senses, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects.
Mucha?
Someone else go.
Okay. The tips of the branches are the senses, ears, nose, eyes, etc., which are attached to the enjoyment of different sense objects. The twigs are sound, form, touch, and so on, the sense objects. Anandi?
the subsidiary roots, attachments, and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. The tendencies toward piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots, which spread in all directions.
Isaac?
The real root is from Brahmaloka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary systems, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma or fruitive activities for promotion.
This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. Okay, we talked about field, the knower of the field in 2 chapters back. Now we've got that, and then the three modes of nature. Now he's putting it into this upside down tree. Anandi, read the next verse again, text 3 and 4.
The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down the strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that supreme personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial.
Purport.
Me or Muchu?
Isaac, yeah.
It is now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world. Since the root is upwards, the extension of the real tree is at the other end.
When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. Elijah, are you in?
Yes.
You want to read?
Okay, I am the son of my father. My father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Garbhad,
Come on, you can do it.
Garbhodakaya Sai Vishnu.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And let's see. Anandi, your turn.
Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of research work. One has to search out that origin of this tree. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, though, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of that Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Then by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. The word asanga is very important in this connection because the attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong.
Therefore, one must learn detachment by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures, and one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. As a result of such discussion in the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of God. Suprita, we're in chapter 15. We're reading the purport to text 4.
Yeah, I'm caught up.
Did you find it?
Yeah,
Whoa, do you want to read?
yeah. Then the first thing one must do is surrender to him. The description of that place whence having gone, one never returns to this false reflected tree is given here.
And start over again, Anandi.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original root from which everything has emanated. To gain the favor of that personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender. And this is a result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc.
He is the cause of the extension of the material world. This has already been explained by the Lord himself.
Mucha, are you in?
Yeah. Aham sarvasya prabhava. I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of this strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna.
As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension. All right, text 5, Elijah.
Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with the material lust, who are free from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain into the eternal kingdom.
All right, we've read this purport every time we go through. So we're going to skip it this time because I know there's always something we've missed out on. But there's just such a cool thing in here. Where is it? When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in the material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. A little below that, pride is due to illusion, for although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. That's my favorite quote in this chapter. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble.
Yeah.
All you do is just give in and say, I'm not in control, I'm not in charge. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. The whole world moves under this impression. All right, text 6. Let's see, Elijah, Suprita.
That supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world.
Anandi, next verse.
The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind.
The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another.
Mucho.
The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects.
Okay, what does this have to do with that tree that we just read about? Why did he take the trouble to describe this tree? And then it seems like he's just completely changing the subject. What's going on? I'm putting it out to you. Panel of
The two
experts.
subjects are part of the tree.
What was that again?
Aren't the sense objects a part of the tree?
Oh, good point. Yeah. And the senses are too. The sense objects and the different conceptions of life. Yeah, you're going up and down the tree. Thank you, Professor Elijah. Let's read that purport to text 9. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure like water. Hey, weren't we talking about that last night? Yeah, we were talking about the 3 modes of nature and how when you're free from the modes, you're pure. Originally, the living entity is pure. So I'll read that again. Consciousness is originally pure like water. Elijah, next. Go ahead.
But if we mix water with certain water, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit, soul is pure.
Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit, soul is pure. Yeah. Okay. And Suprita.
But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness.
Wait,
When therefore one
short
is
sentences. Anandi.
yes, when therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he's in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life, he gets a corresponding body.
He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or any one of many other forms, for there are 8,400,000 species.
That's not very comforting.
Well, just the consciousness is pure, and whatever we adulterate it with, I'll read text 9 again. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects, here or there on that tree. Let's see. So let's see, he's further describing the tree, and then toward the end, I guess he's going to get into how to cut down that tree with a weapon of detachment. How that weapon. Okay, text 10. Anandi.
Oh. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all of this, or all this.
Next verse.
You read backwards before, so it's Muchu's turn.
I read backwards. Oh.
Yeah. So Muchu, you can go.
Okay.
Isaac's being careful. He doesn't want to pollute his body, his consciousness with cheating. He wants to act from the platform of pure consciousness. Go ahead.
So text 11.
Yeah.
The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try.
Text 12. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. And all of a sudden, he's like changing topics again. He was talking about us and how we take on different bodies and how some people can see it clearly and some people can't. Let's read this purport because Prabhupada says something about that. Elijah, go ahead.
The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here.
Suprita.
We're reading the purport of text 11, right?
We're reading, text 12, purport.
Oh, okay. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Anandi.
In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home.
From this,
How so? What is it that's inviting us home? Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of these things are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. Okay, somehow I didn't catch that. Herewith, he's giving a hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home, just by getting some understanding. Okay, go ahead, Isaac.
from this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole solar system. There are different universes and solar systems, and there are different suns, moons, and planets also. But in each universe, there is only one sun.
As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:21, the moon is one of the stars. Nakshatranam aham shashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord.
With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff. They set fire to start the factories, etc.
So many things are done with the help of the fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities.
Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin.
By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna.
Without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. And without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul.
That's awesome.
The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they're living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. You ever been outside, like far away from the city lights, and there's a big moon out, and it is really nice. I used to hear like the moon is nice, and I always wondered like, hey, what's the big deal? But in the right circumstance, it is like so nice that you can feel the people can easily understand they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I read a book about this family in South India who were connoisseurs of growing mangoes, and they grew the best special kind of mangoes, and they had these festivals in the mango season at night. On full moon nights, they set up a stage and had sitar music playing, and people would just sit around and eat really good mango.
That's ecstatic.
Yeah. It was a novel that I read, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. That's some really high level sense gratification there.
Yeah.
Hiring a band, you got your family, you got your other families, and they all grow mangoes, and they have the contests. Who has grown the tastiest mango? And after you've eaten a bunch of mangoes, that mango better really be good. And there was some mango called the Nilagiri, blue mango. That was like always the top one.
Really?
And in the book, they just got into like the mangoes start ripening up first in this part of India, and these people would have them trucked in from far away, and then as theirs came in to ripeness, then that's when they had their festival. But being out in that moonlight, and then I have experience of on the East Coast here in North Carolina. I organized a group of people to come out to the beach to have a kirtan on the beach as the full moon rose out of the ocean. And there was this Christian woman who had come to the talk the night before, and she was like, she said, my whole life I've been following all the principles of Christianity, but I want to try something different. And I said, all right, come to the kirtan tomorrow night. And for her, it was like a deadly sin. So it tasted even better. And she came out and chanted Hare Krishna with all of the heathens. And she was just like so excited, and she was looking around at the moonlight, reflecting on the beach and on everybody. And she said, I can't believe it. I've never done this before. Is it this beautiful every night? Like she's like looking at the moon on her, and like it was just so beautiful, and reflecting on the ocean, all the ripples and the waves, and the beautiful people that were there, everybody singing, and she felt like she was getting away with something. She'd cut off from her Christian roots. I told her, like, no, hang on to your roots. You've got good roots. You can explore, but don't. There are some things that are really fun that are not going to be good, like sitting in the moonlight, singing Hare Krishna. But she was so excited. I just remember her looking around like, is it like this every night? I've been missing it for these 40 years. Okay, I just got excited by that one sentence. Moonshine is amazing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. Without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. Wondering, where is he going with this? And I had a hunch that's what it was about. As he's talking about us, talking about the banyan tree, and then he's talking about our situation in the banyan tree, going after the different twigs and branches and leaves. And then all of a sudden he's talking about himself. And the reason is, this is a clue how to employ this weapon of detachment, is to see something higher, to look beyond that tree. And he did state that before he got into us, he was talking about my abode is not illuminated by the sun, moon, or electricity. Okay, who finished off this? I think it was Isaac, right? Finished the
Yeah.
Okay, would you read text 13?
I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables.
All right, let's read this purport. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being.
That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. They said that there's one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom.
So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks.
Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Didn't we just read that? Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
His energy is sustaining each planet just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling, but if one throws it in the air, it will fall down.
Similarly, these planets which are floating in the air are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place.
It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in air and perish.
Similarly, it is due to the moon nourishes. Wait, I missed something else. Sorry. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious.
Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoy food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord.
Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasad makha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon.
Interesting. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. Now, what do you think of that?
So romantic.
A romantic t-shirt?
It's romantic.
Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yep.
Everything and everybody looks better in the moonlight. Prabhupada talks about the reflective capacity of a living being. This is in the Bhagavatam. He says that Krishna's mercy is on everyone. Some people take it and some people don't. And then he says that the moon shines everywhere at night. But it looks particularly nice on the Taj Mahal. Even more nice than just on some place in the wilderness. So in the wilderness, it looks nice. That's true. But on the Taj Mahal, that would be really spectacular. And I think it's a thing that on full moon night, a lot of people go to look at the Taj Mahal. All right, text 14, the digestion verse.
You just read.
Isaac?
I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of foodstuff.
Well, let's read this purport.
According to Ayurvedic Shastra, we understand that there is a fire in the stomach which digests all food put there. When the fire is not blazing, there is no hunger, and when the fire is in order, we become hungry.
Sometimes when the fire is not going nicely, treatment is required. In any case, the fire is representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Vedic mantras, Prahad, Arunyak, Yaka, Bard Arunyak also confirmed the Supreme Person, the Supreme Lord or Brahman is situated in the foodstuff.
Therefore, since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of foodstuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him in digesting, there is no possibility of eating.
He thus produces and digests foodstuffs, and by his grace we are enjoying life. In the Vedanta Sutra, this is also confirmed. Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
You could skip the Sanskrit on that one.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
The Lord is situated within sound and within the body, within the air, and even within the stomach as the digestive force. There are four kinds of foodstuff. Some are drunk, some are chewed, some are licked up, and some are sucked. And he is the digestive force for all of them.
And text 15. Which?
I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
Next verse. Well, that is an important one. So what he's just said there are how many verses? First he said, I'm the sun, the moon, and fire. Splendor of the sun comes from me. That's text 12.
We've got plenty of time because there's only a couple more verses in the chapter.
Okay. Then the next verse, he says he's supplying the juice of life to all the vegetables. So he's supplying us light, he's supplying us food. And let's see, and the planets are staying in orbit because of him. So he's given us a planet to stay on. And then he's the fire of digestion. So he's the ground that we stand on. He nourishes the vegetables that we eat. And then he gives us the power to digest them. And now in this verse, he says, I'm seated in everyone's heart, and I give you knowledge, understanding, remembrance, forgetfulness. All of the Vedas are meant for knowing him. And he says, I am the compiler of the Vedanta. Let's finish up, and then maybe we'll come back to this one. So text 16. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible.
Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supersoul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them.
Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person.
Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata.
This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection.
And that is chapter 15. We've made it through the banyan tree, the dense forest of delusion, and the flowery words of the Vedas that are on the leaves. Do
Is this where Muhammad Ali got that I am the greatest from text 618?
Yeah, you notice that too. Every time I read that, I think, I wonder if that's where he got it from. These youngsters here have no idea what we're talking about.
Yes.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Cassius
I don't
Clay.
know who Ali is.
He's talking about some Muslim guy.
I know who Muhammad Ali is.
Okay. Did you get the reference?
No, I didn't hear what he said.
In text 18, Krishna says, "Because I am the greatest," and that's what
Oh,
Muhammad.
yeah. I don't think so.
All right, I want to read the purport to text 20, and then we'll go back to 15. I know Anandi has to leave in 3 minutes. So let's see, who read? Isaac read 20. So Mucha, go ahead, purport 20.
The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become free from all contaminations of the modes of material nature.
Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist.
Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord Himself are one and the same because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. Lord is said to be the sun, and the ignorance is called darkness.
Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present, under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance.
Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be, in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent.
Word Anaga, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anaga means O sinless one. Anaga, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna.
One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities. Then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness.
While one is performing devotional service and the association with pure devotees and full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature.
Thus, one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter.
The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart, and the rest of the chapter from the 6th verse through the end discusses Purushottama Yoga.
Purushottama Yoga. There's a new yoga name.
Yes, I love that.
Uh, yeah, we've got hot yoga and Vikram yoga.
Bikram yoga.
So we
That's the
could,
t-shirt I'm gonna get. I'm into Purushottama yoga.
yeah, we're practicing Purushottam yoga. We just read
Yes.
chapter 15 over and over again.
All right, I'm gonna run. Goodbye, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol,
Have a good night.
in this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. These weaknesses of heart. Oh, so the 2 kinds of weakness of heart. The first fall down is caused by desire to lord it over material nature. The second weakness is that as one increases their propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. I'm thinking what he's getting at is this, these 2 words, prakshepatmika and avaranatmika, the throwing potency and the covering potency of Maya. Maya will take us out of a good place and just throw us somewhere else. And then once we're out there, we get covered over and we think, oh, this is okay. So, prakshepatmika and avaranatmika. Have you ever heard those terms before, Mochu?
Not in the Sanskrit.
Oh, okay. I think that may be what he's getting at, but that's like an external force of Maya. He's talking about our own weakness of heart that would allow that to happen, to allow ourselves to be thrown into the first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. So instead of blaming it on Maya, this throwing potency, it's like we allow ourselves to be thrown. And then the second weakness of heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of heart, which are discussed in the first 5 verses. And so the verses after that, 6 through the end, discuss Purushottam Yoga. Okay, you want to read?
This verse is like the responsibility verse.
What's
Like,
that?
you could say that this verse is the responsibility verse, rather than blaming external factors for our situation.
Yeah, which verse was
Like
that?
this one, 20. Even in the verse itself, like that part of the purport that you just read, is what made me think that. But actually, even the verse itself, it says, whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So, if someone is complaining about their situation, it's like, well, your endeavors would have been perfect if you had taken on board this wisdom and not had that weakness of heart. Not that you'd say this to someone probably, but maybe if you're a coach of some sort. But yeah, what do you think?
Okay, yeah. Here we're handed a key. Use this key and be that guy in the picture, the upper right part, who is cutting down the tree of attachment with the weapon of detachment.
Yeah.
Yeah, the video game. You've been
Right.
given a key.
Yeah.
Understand this.
Yeah. Yeah, video game is a really good analogy actually for responsibility. Like if you die, it's definitely always your fault. Like you failed to time something right, or you jumped too soon and so you fell off the cliff, and there's no value judgment. You just die, and then you have to restart, right? Or you lose a life.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No value judgment. Yeah, you always get to start over again. Interesting. No value judgment, no shaming. Just okay. Here we go again. That was inconvenient. It was time consuming.
Right.
When you die, it's like, oh shucks, gotta start over again. Okay, I saw Suprita's arm and then I don't see her anymore. Oh, there's something.
My phone's charging, so I put it in.
You're still alive. I thought like your arm went up and you just like.
I have to go put my leg up. So I will see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, Elijah.
I'm in some pain, so
What was the last thing you said?
I said I'm in some pain, so
Oh no. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Haribo,
Hare
Elijah.
Horrible.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Take care.
Okay, we had a request for chapter 15 purport. Are we still on for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that. You started off, Mocha. Read the verse.
I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is witness to all his work.
Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life.
Thus, the Lord is not only pervading, he is localized in every individual heart. He awards the different creative result.
Is worshipable not only as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas.
Go ahead.
The Vedas give the right direction to people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to Him.
Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra.
The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activity, and the giver of knowledge in the form of Vedas, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and the teacher of Bhagavad Gita. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul.
Thus, God is all good, God is all merciful. Antaha pravishtaha jasta dhananam.
The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life.
So not only does the living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation of the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. If one is serious about understanding the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence.
Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yo sau sarvair Vedair Giyate.
In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and the Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service, he is attained.
Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process for realizing him.
The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra confirms this in the following words: Tattu samanvayat. One can attain perfection in 3 stages.
By understanding Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing the different processes, one can approach him. And at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined.
Okay. What do you have to say about that?
I really appreciate this verse because one time someone asked me, so who is Krishna? And I said, well, he is in every inch of space in all directions at all times. And he's also in our heart. And he said, yeah, that first thing you said about him being everywhere and all directions, I didn't really get that. But that second thing you said, like I got that. And I think what he was trying to say, or at least what I got from that feedback, was that when I speak from realization rather than theory, people get it, like it lands for people. And so when I read this verse here, I'm sitting in everyone's heart. It just reminded me of that exchange, and made me. And he kind of verified for me that that is more realized than the first point about his all pervasiveness. So now when I read it, I kind of identify with that as a realization. So yeah, I'm kind of grateful for him saying that.
Yeah. Well, speaking from realization and also coupled with something that we've read, I've gotten into trouble when I would just try to speak from realization and kind of invent my own words. Then people would say, well, what about this? And so if I had a realization, but I said it in Prabhupada's words, or, I was able to back it up with that, that's pretty airtight. It really gets people. I've found that every time I stray from it, sometimes I will stray and try something new, come up with a new comparison, new analogy, and sometimes it works out well. And if it does become faulty, then I'll like bring it back to, well, here's how Prabhupada describes it, and then they get it. Everything he says really holds up well.
Yeah.
But I like what you said. The guy got some kind of feeling of God in the heart. And that's good. Some people are going to get that. I was just thinking of someone I met when I was in India a couple of years ago. He was from Australia, one of the original Australian devotees. And
Really?
he, I can't remember his name though. But his story was, he started working at some organic farm. It was in a commune, and everything was just beautiful. And he had everything that he wanted, working with vegetables, being with beautiful people. He was young, scenery was beautiful, but he just felt, there's something. I know there's something. I need to find God. Yeah, that's what it is. I need to find God. And so he was just out in the field, and he said, he just took off all of his clothes and he just stood out there and he said, God, here I am. That was an important part. He just like bared himself in front of God. Here I am. Take me. I want to know you. And the next day, somebody came there to that farm out in the middle of nowhere and said, we have some books for you. Somebody told us to come and get you. And he looked at the books, he looked at the devotees, and he said, oh, that was quick. And they took him to the temple, and as soon as he saw the deities, he said, yeah, that's it. That was the thing, seeing the deities. He just said, yeah, I'm home. Here I am. And they made him the pujari instantly. He wasn't even initiated, but he just started cooking offerings for the deities. And in those days, there weren't enough initiated devotees, and it was kind of emergency stuff. And he just took to it, and he says, I've been doing it ever since. Taking care of the deities. He says, I love the deities. He's never gotten married all these years. He was just totally in, and this is like from early 70s. So yeah, you never know what someone's going through. You know, you might just meet somebody who has just the day before taken off all of his clothes and said, God, here I am. I'm not holding anything back. This is me. I'm not hiding anything from you. I'm not putting on any kind of facade. I'm not even putting on any clothes.
It reminds me of King Prataparudra when he knew that if he was going to go see the Lord, he would have to take off his his kingly dress and just put on some, and in that way he could have the Lord.
Oh yeah, there you go. Look at you. You're validating what I said.
Well, that's kind of like what you're saying, eh? Like this guy had an experience, but there's going to be an equivalent, like like when you come up with a new analogy and then you're able to put in Prabhupada's words. It's like, oh yeah, that's it.
Oh boy,
And
yeah.
really, just a normal thing. Like in my profession as a youth worker, we're always referring to the code of ethics. And I realized that this is the same as what we devotees do. Like we're constantly filtering what we hear and experience through this code called Bhagavad Gita, where there's different, verses with different principles, and we refer to them and we filter everything through them and validate and verify experiences and use them to guide our behaviors and choices.
Yeah, that is good to have that kind of code. With Bhagavad Gita, there are so many codes in there that sometimes you can just get lost in there. There's so much. But yeah, there's a few that I picked out over the years that I've really run with, and they've helped a lot. Coming up in chapter 17, austerity of speech. That's a big one. That's a good one. code. And code of ethics, working with students. Yeah, we need to know what are the lines that you don't cross. Make it really clear, and don't even touch that line.
Yeah, but sometimes one of the lines has to be crossed to honor another code, another boundary. So there's a hierarchy of principles, just like we have also, Krishna. He promised, I won't take part in this battle. But then there was also another promise he gave where he said, I will always protect my devotee. So he had to break one promise to honor another, but one was higher than the other.
Yeah, good point. Okay, well, there we go. You've coined a new phrase, the responsibility verse, and all kinds of things, and bearing oneself before the Lord. How about you guys, Isaac or Suprita? Anything to say about what we've just read? Any big breakthroughs? Anything shaking loose?
The moonshine, that there's a flower in India where it blooms only when there's moonshine, and it smells so good, and it blooms like once every few months or something. So I connected that to that verse.
Oh, yeah. In Hawaii, I remember there was a flower called the night blooming cirrus. I think that's what it's called, cirrus. And yeah, I was a kid. My mom was driving us home from something one night, and she said, "Oh, look, the night blooming cirrus is open." And I looked, and I couldn't see anything, but we smelled something, and wow, it was really good. Yeah, nice flowers in the tropics. Oh man, good stuff, and good mangoes too. Um,
Yeah.
so, do they grow good mangoes where you come from?
Yeah. Yeah. We
What's the
love
best?
mango.
What's the best kind?
It's called raspuri.
Rajpuri,
Raspuri.
Raspuri.
Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Mhm.
So is it like a round one, or is it the longer kind of flat
It's
ones?
like smaller and reddish yellow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do
The
mangoes
bigger
grow on?
yellow ones are like less sweeter, but the smaller red ones, those are really good.
Okay. When do you have to be in India to get those?
May.
Ooh,
May,
hottest time of
June, July. Yeah.
May and June. It's the hottest time in India.
In north, yeah. In south, it's not so hot.
What? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Mid-May, it stops getting too hot, and June, July is like monsoon.
Okay. Well, we got to go. You got to take us. You guys into that? Mojo and Isaac? Let's go to India in May and have a mango tour.
I'm down.
Yeah.
And that would be